If you're a photographer or videographer, then you know the power of addiction when it comes to buying camera gear and how expensive that addiction can be. And I'm going to teach you guys how to get camera gear for cheap. But before we get into all that, I want to tell you a little story about how I acquired this Sigma 35 1.4. And yes, it is relevant. So recently I was going to do a proposal shoot and decided that I wanted to use a 35 to film it. However, I didn't have a 35 prime at the time. So I decided that I would visit some of the camera stores in town, browse the inventory, try out their selection of 35s and see which one I liked the most, and I would rent that one for the day to shoot. And when I visited the last store for the day, I saw that they had the Sigma 35 1.4 on the shelf and that it was an oddly cheap price. So I asked the lady if I could take a look, and I asked her, do you know if it's a new model or the old model? And she said, I have no clue. And when she brought the box and I saw it was the box for the updated Sigma 35 model, I knew for a fact that they had listed the wrong price. And to make a long story short, as you can tell, it's in my hand right now, so of course I did buy it, and this is actually the first lens that I've ever bought brand new. Which leads me to my first point, which is buying new against used equipment. I'm a very big advocate for buying used whenever possible. Obviously, if there's a brand new camera that comes out, for example my A7IV, I bought that new because there was simply not any available on the used market. Same thing applies for any other kind of camera filming equipment. And of course, buying new and buying used each have their own benefits and downsides, so I'm going to quickly tell you what those are. Of course, when you're buying stuff new, it is new, it's the best condition you can get it in, you get warranty as well, but the downside is you're obviously paying a higher price. Of course, buying used, it's going to be a lot harder to find something that's basically brand new, but it is still possible to find stuff that is brand new, and of course you pay a cheaper price. Of course, when it comes to buying new stuff, you also have a lot more choice because the stores will basically have everything available, whereas if you're buying used, it really depends on what's around you or if you're willing to travel or order something online. And that's basically it. So if you're someone with really deep pockets, then by all means go buy new. But if you're someone who's like me, maybe a little bit more on the budget side, a little bit more budget conscious, then of course used for people like us is the superior choice. So now that we decided that we're going to be buying used equipment, here are some kind of tactics and things that you can do that you wouldn't be able to do if you're buying brand new equipment. So one of the first things are bundles. And what I mean by that is, for example, someone could have an entire ecosystem of a camera brand and they're basically changing brands. So they're going to be probably selling everything. And if you approach them and say, hey, I want to buy your entire kit or buy multiple items, then they're most likely going to offer you better pricing and freebies as well. Another thing that's great about buying used is that the depreciation has already kind of hit. For example, lenses are something that really holds their value over a very long time unless a newer model or updated version of that lens comes out, but even still it doesn't affect the price that much usually. So what that means for you as someone who's buying a used lens is you could buy something, for example, like a 50mm 1.8, you pay maybe $200 for it. In a year or 2 years time, you could probably sell it for $200. I personally have bought multiple lenses used, and after a year or even a year and a half, I've sold them for basically the price that I paid for them. It's the same thing as renting a lens for free, basically. Of course, you gotta make sure that you take good care of the equipment, keep all the boxes, documentation and whatnot. If you're unlucky and you do damage the equipment, then it's not too bad because keep in mind the depreciation is going to be a lot less than if you had bought it new and then damaged it afterwards. Another great thing that can happen when buying used, specifically from private sellers, is that you actually make friends and connections. That's actually the case for me. I made a friend because I bought a Sony lens from him and he saw that I had a Sony camera as well, and he's like, oh great, you know, we're Sony shooters. And of course I asked him if he has any other stuff available, and you know, he asked to see my photos and he's like, oh, your photos are great, man. I saw his, and you know, we basically became friends because of that deal. And then, you know, we talk from time to time and sometimes we plan to go out to shoot. Unless you're buying from a smaller local store, then it can be a lot harder to do all of these things. I'm not saying it's impossible when you're buying stuff new, but it is a lot harder to establish connections and haggle and do all these kind of things when you're buying from a corporation. So where do I find used camera equipment? Well, my main source is mainly through social media and kind of marketplace platforms. So that would be something like Facebook Marketplace, Facebook groups, buy and sell groups on social media, and camera groups related for the products I'm searching for. There's also online stores like BH Photo, Craigslist, eBay, and whatnot. I personally prefer to do only in-person sales. It's a lot easier to negotiate when you have cash in hand and you're staring the person in the face because you showed up, you're there to buy the item. And when you're standing in front of a potential seller, then it's a lot harder for them to kind of diss you off and just say, oh no, forget about it. They're going to be much more open to negotiating with you. And if by chance you have any friends and family who are also into photography or videography, then you could ask them, hey, do you have any equipment that you're trying to get rid of, something that, you know, you're not interested in keeping? And pretty much all of the time you can guarantee that you're going to get an even better price because, you know, they're their friend, they're your family, and you know, it's just helping each other out. So now that you know where the used camera equipment is, the question is, what do you do when you actually go out to buy it? And the number one thing you always have to do is do your research, make sure what you're buying is a good purchase and that it's the right time to buy it. So a great example of this is my 16-35 f4 Carl Zeiss. At the time I was trying to sell it, and I had saw on Sony Alpha rumors that they're going to be releasing a new 16-35 f4, and I knew that meant that the market is basically going to be flooded with people who are selling their old 16-35 to get the new one, and that's going to push the prices down. So I knew I had to sell mine basically instantly, and luckily I was able to sell it before the new one came out, and of course the prices went down even further because of that. But if you flip the roles and if you're a potential buyer, then this is also something that you want to look out for if there's going to be any new lenses coming out. A good example is also the Sony 7200 G Master. I was looking to get one of those, and then I had saw on Sony Alpha rumors that there's going to be a new one coming out, so I said, you know what, I'm going to wait and see how the market reacts first, wait a couple of months and see how the prices change. Of course, if the prices don't change, then I don't really lose anything, I just have to wait a little bit longer, and if the prices did change, then I would have lost some money. It's also always better to be patient than rush things. When you're buying stuff used, you never want to rush, you never want to buy based off emotion, and that's something important as well. The next step, of course, is to literally just message the people, arrange the time, arrange the price, and meet up and take the item. Of course, it's not that simple. If you're someone who's maybe not so knowledgeable with camera equipment, then maybe you want to bring a friend along who's more knowledgeable than you. It's always great to test out the items as well when you're purchasing them. I always do that. Whether it's a lens or a camera, always try it out if possible. For example, if it's a camera body, maybe you want to bring out some lenses with you, put it on the camera, try it out, make sure everything's working. And if it's a lens, for example, bring your camera, put it on your body, try taking photos, try taking videos, like really test it and make sure that there's no problems with it. Visually, it could be perfectly fine, but on the inside there could be mold, there could be a problem with the focus motor and whatnot. You want to make sure that you really thoroughly test it when you're there to make sure that you're not buying a broken product. And if everything looks good, hopefully you've managed to purchase yourself a new piece of camera equipment. And if you're extra lucky, maybe you made a friend as well. And if you're really lucky, maybe you coincidentally bumped into someone who does product reviews, whether it be YouTube videos, blogs or whatnot, and they have a consistent supply of camera equipment or video equipment that they basically get for free, review and sell, or try to quick sell. If they are, definitely a good idea to just get their contact information, because you can get a lot of great deals off of people like that. And that's all you really need to know in order to get some great deals on camera equipment. If you found this video helpful at all, I'll definitely appreciate a like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments what you think, if you didn't think of any of these tips or didn't know anything, or if you have any extra tips that would be great to recommend to anyone else who's interested in buying used equipment, leave them down below. And if you guys are interested in looking at any photos and videos that I've taken with a basically entire kit that has been bought used, then check this video out here or here. I can't remember which side it is, and I'll see you guys around.